Which picks were the biggest steals in the 2024 NFL Draft? We're exploring that today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play.
Joseph, we're doing draft steals or values. Some interesting research that's now coming out from the some more of the analytic background in minds about reaches versus steals versus the consensus board, right? So trying to educate myself on the research that's done there, and I'll be interested to see how that continues to pan itself out as we get more information and as we get more research on the kind of these new storylines. But at the end of the day, if your board's your board, if you watch the players and you know how you feel about them and you know where the players went, just like you said yesterday about grading the draft classes, you can come out and feel like we got some big time winners up and down in every round. I could give you my best value pick in every single round. And I feel like those are players that are going to have a good pathway for success.
Well, I'm excited to hear those on your behalf. I have a bunch that I want to get to here today. And, Kyle, I'm sure you heard about this. Tom Brady was pick 199. Brock Purdy was
Really?
Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah, I mean, these are
really
things.
Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft.
It's insane. Yeah. So
Tom Brady went in the 6th round.
Yeah, little known fact. Little known fact. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And then there's some guys that just like didn't even get drafted, right? Do you know Tony Romo went undrafted?
Yeah. Jason Peters, man, didn't get drafted. Crazy.
It was interesting. I don't know if you saw Nick Wright went in on how you
imagine thinking I watched anything Nick Wright did, Kyle Crabbs. Come on now.
The clip that it's like a 90-second clip. It got put on.
90 seconds too long.
He said everybody thinks Howie Roseman drafts good because Howie Roseman's drafts just mirror whatever the public consensus is on the players. But that wasn't my point of bringing up Howie Roseman and Nick Wright. It was just I wanted to say something about Howie Roseman before we get started. Howie, did you hear what he had to say about the day 3 value?
You better have something unusual about you. You better have.
That was great insight, and I think for some of these guys that we're going to talk about here in just a bit, that's maybe applicable. Maybe not for all of them, but for some of them.
So we want to start with day 2 steals. And what I'm excited about is kind of how I went through and identified my steals as I went through, okay, this is my board. This is where I had these players ranked. This is where they got drafted and what type of discrepancy exists there. But obviously, as you get earlier in the draft, it's not as steep, but I still think it's worth shouting out some of these players that were big time plus value. And I'd like to start by shouting out Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback, Alabama, gets picked by the New Orleans Saints at number 41 overall. Kool-Aid McKinstry was my number 19 player. So you're talking about getting a top 20 player, in my view, in this class at pick 41. I think that is phenomenal value. I think the Saints needed to add corner, and the corner run started late, right? Like Quinyon Mitchell was first, like 21 overall. Yeah. Terrion Arnold goes shortly after that, Nate Wiggins, and then you start to see Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think the Saints being able to get that player at that point was one of my, higher end steals of this draft.
So I want to acknowledge, again, my process. We kind of alluded to it yesterday. I have my board, and then I have the actual order the picks came off. and I apply to the ranking and then to the draft pick the trade value chart value for the corresponding number that's next to your name on either side. And then I do the net not off of the ranking and versus the pick, but the trade value chart. And then when I value the entire draft class, I weight it by round, but I'm not doing that for this discussion because it's less about like how important was it for you to, or like what's the likelihood of finding players with these picks in these ranges, and it's more just the pure ranking versus the pure outcome. So I'm not applying that lens through it. And if I look at day 2, my top 3 players from a point value chart perspective, from where I had them ranked versus where they got picked, they were all players that had a medical tag next to their name. So I'm going to omit them.
I did that as well for the sake of this as well. Yeah.
Yep. So Payton Wilson, Cooper DeJean, and Johnny Newton were the 3 best day 2 values, but they all came in with that dreaded asterisk with the M next to it on their name in my rankings. So the best value that didn't come with some red tape was Trey Benson, running back, Florida State, going to the Arizona Cardinals at pick number 66. I had him ranked 27th on my board. So obviously positional value is a contributing factor there in a class where most of the backs had some questions, right? But, for Trey, who I think you and I probably both thought was one of the more complete backs, if not the most complete back in this class.
Yeah.
To go to Arizona in the 3rd round, and not be the first running back off the board. It was Brooks was the first off the board. And Carolina traded up for him, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Traded back, got a 2, and then moved back up 2 for next year. So,
dude, I don't know if you saw that. That trade up with the Rams, I believe they came up for Fisk in that pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the highest. Like if you're trading up, you have to overpay value to incentivize a team to come out. That's like the highest overpay in the last 15 years for a trade up on day 2. Yeah. They really wanted Fisk.
I love that deal.
If you're Carolina, I don't blame you one bit for taking that deal because that was an awesome return to trade back.
Right. The other player that I have day 2 as a steal, again, Cooper DeJean certainly qualifies for me, Payton Wilson as well. Again, non-medical flag. Mm-hmm. Christian Haynes going to the Seahawks at pick 81.
Hurts my heart. You're right.
I had him, I know, former Miami Dolphin legend, Christian Haynes, right? He was always the pick at 50 until he wasn't.
50, I was like, man, I hope he makes it to 55. Run that card in.
Somehow he gets to 81. So you get 41 points of value here, in my opinion. And I wound up having several Seahawks on this list. That was kind of fun to see the distribution of teams that were able to get a bunch of steals. And this is one of them for Seattle. But as we look at this through the lens of day 2, getting Christian Haynes at pick 81, I think, is just phenomenal. Clearly needed some help on that interior offensive line after it got gutted in free agency. And to add that type of range and movement skills, starting caliber player that I thought was a top 50 selection all day long, getting him at 81, that's outstanding.
So I want to acknowledge 3 more players, but they all come with more fine print, right? So we acknowledge 3 players that went on day 3 that I had in my top 20 players in the class, but they have medical flags. And Wilson, DeJean, and Newton. Trey Benson's the best non-medical flag player, but he plays running back. What position do you think the next player that I had as best value is?
Safety.
Safety, Javon Bullard, Georgia Bulldogs. Had him ranked 30th. He went 58th to the Green Bay Packers. Awesome fit. Dude, the Packers safety room, they got Oladapo too.
Yeah. Right. McKinney.
Yeah, that defense is going to be fun. So Javon Bullard's on this list. What position do you think the next player that was the best day 2 value plays?
Safety.
No. Tight end, Ben Sinnott.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people might be surprised to find out that Ben Sinnott was the 3rd best non-medical flagged value player on my board, but I had him 28th on my board. And he goes 53 to Washington. The next player, what position do you think the next player plays? It's not safety. Don't say safety.
Interior offensive line.
That's a good guess. Nickel corner, Mike Sandersville. So, and then the next one in line for me is Kool-Aid McKinstry. So
a lot of overlap.
The guys that I had highly, I understand why they went a little later. because I'm not adjusting for positional value in the same way that when you get on the board and you have 3 players that are in the same tier, and you're trying to decide who to draft, and you say, well, from an economic perspective, you could probably really justify taking the premium position player because of the discount versus what top dollar looks like at that position for the next 4 to 5 years.
You know how I like to look at it, Kyle? The good players are the premium.
Yeah, you should pick the good players. And that's why Trey Benson was ranked 27th, and Ben Sinnott was ranked 28th, and Mike Sanderson was ranked 25th, and Javon Bullard was ranked 30th, because they're really good players. But to get them where they got them all after pick 50, between pick 50 and 66 for those 4 players is outstanding value. I think those teams should be thrilled.
All right, we are going to get into some day 3 steals on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with us. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. They have mini games, massive multipliers for everything you win, or rent frenzy. So much going on. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
I had some quip, and I already forgot it. So we could probably just move on to
just talk about
day 3 guys.
Steals. Yeah.
Oh, well.
So now that we're into day 3, it opens up everything. And I think I should lead with, I had 3 players that had plus 100 value in terms of where I had them ranked and where they went. So let me shout out these 3 players.
Malik Washington.
Please hold, Kyle Crabbs. The biggest plus value that I found in the entire draft was Christian Mahogany, the interior offensive lineman out of Boston College. The Lions pick him at 210. I had him 54th on my board. All right. So I thought very highly of Christian Mahogany. I know that there's a medical flag, so there's your big asterisk right there. Lion through and through. The second one that was over 100 points is MJ Devonshire, the corner from Pitt, my 112th ranked player. He goes 229 overall to the Raiders. Big need at corner. I think Devonshire, I don't know what's missing. He's got athleticism, ball skills, versatility. I really don't know what's missing out of him. And then the last one, Malik Washington, wide receiver out of Virginia, my 76th rated player. The Dolphins get him at 184. That's 108 points of difference on my board versus where Miami got him. And, I think for all the conversations that we've had about Miami and the third receiver, and maybe Odell's on the way, right? And I get there's always the lens of, all right, Joe, calm down. He's picked 184. But could you imagine a more perfect fit than Malik Washington, the yards after catch, the quick strike ability, Tua getting the ball out of his hands? This guy's going to be a little bit of a problem, and especially when you consider the vertical spacing that they can generate with Waddle and Hill. So I think you've seen them roll with like the Braxton Berrios, River Craycrafts in this type of role. I think they upgrade that in a significant way, and Malik Washington with just how dynamic he is with the ball in his hands.
Yeah. Malik's getting a deep dive tomorrow on Locked On Dolphins, so I won't give too much here, but he's the fact that he's a little bit more rocked up than like River and Braxton.
Yeah.
Like dense. It's like 5'8.5". That density shows up. He's got really good hands. Like I think you'd be surprised that a player of that stature has the catch radius that he does. So those are nice things for Malik Washington, who is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th best day 3 value pick. My first is TJ Tampa, who went to the Baltimore Ravens at pick 130. I had him 45th on my draft board. I'll shout out I had 3 guys at the very top that were all 4th round picks. And that's, again, just based off of the valuations of the trade value charts. Those picks are worth significantly more than like your 6th and 7th round picks. So the discrepancy there kind of helps when I've got guys like Tampa, who was ranked 45th, Brandon Dorless, who I had ranked 56th, going to Atlanta. It was nice to see Atlanta manage to find at least one good value pick in their entire draft class. So congratulations for that.
Right.
And then Theo Johnson from Penn State, who I know was higher on than the consensus. He goes 107 to the Giants, which if Darren Waller does retire, could you think of a better long-term developmental player to phase into the same kind of role, if that's something you really covet long-term, than Theo Johnson in this draft? Probably not.
Yeah, I thought that was a good selection as well. Let me ask you this. I feel like in me interacting with fans, the two players that I got asked the most about in terms of why are they falling are Troy Franklin and TJ Tampa. For Troy Franklin, I think that's a very easy conversation. He's got like way below average play strength. And that's very concerning. So
and
I wasn't.
He's got some bad drops on tape too.
So yeah, like just can't breathe on him. As long as he can run routes with clear air in front of him, he's going to be awesome. Well, I got news. That's not how it goes. So I wasn't surprised to see him fall to the 4th round. The one that I have a hard time coming up with the explanation for is TJ Tampa. So what's your line there? How do you reconcile that? Even as a player that we saw mocked to late 1st round, I had a 2nd round grade on him. He was high on my list here as well. I had him 50th overall. He goes 130. That's 80 points of difference. I don't have an answer for this one. What do you got?
I wish I had like a definitive explanation for you. Maybe he came in a little smaller than maybe you hoped, even though he at 189, even though he is long, he's super long. Right. He's got an 89th percentile wingspan for corners since like 1999 to come through the combine. So maybe is it concerns about the scheme at Iowa State and how it translates? And
that was what I've been saying, scheme specificity, maybe, but I feel like I'm reaching, man. I'm reaching. I don't have a good answer here. I never met the guy. Maybe there's something there. I don't know.
And he ran 4.52 at his pro day. So
which again, fine for what he's going to do, right?
It's fine. I do think he was not the most fluid. So I thought he was like a skill specific, like if you want to play zone. So I think you getting into scheme specificity probably is something. There's probably something to that there. And not having great transitional hip turn and long speed maybe contributed as well. But yeah, he'd have been gone long before 130.
Yeah, in my world, yeah.
At some point there, the value's too good, and I think it would have easily come before 130.
Would love to shout out my players that have a 70-point differential real quick here in this segment.
Sure.
Mekhi Wingo, LSU defensive tackle. I thought he was their best defensive tackle. He's got a stumpy build. Had him that the LSU defensive tackles weren't that good. I had him 103. He goes 189. We just talked about TJ Tampa. I had him 50. He goes 130. I know you're going to talk about Katan Oladipo, or however you say it. 93 on my board. He goes 169 to the Packers. Malik Mustafa, the Wake Forest safety, I had him 51. He goes 124. Don't know what's missing there, man. That guy's a baller.
He went to San Francisco?
Yeah, he went to San Francisco, of course.
He's going to take Jair Brown's job in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong about that. Him and Hufanga, that's a man. You got some killers.
I would much rather have him than Jair Brown.
I agree. DJ James had him 119. He goes 192 to Seattle. Mohamed Kamara, heard about this guy? 86th on my board. He goes 158. That's 72 points. And the last one here is Satoa Luamea, the guard from Utah. I had him 109. He goes 179 to Seattle. So Seattle gets some of my biggest values. Miami on day 3 getting Malik Washington, Mo Kamara, and even Jalen Wright. I had 72. He goes 120. That's 48 points of plus value. Yeah. And the Lions as well. Lions raked up with Christian Mahogany, Mekhi Wingo, and even Terry. I mean, it's 1st round, but Terry Arnold was a heck of a pick there in the 1st round. So we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I want to give my top 3 guys in each round.
Okay.
As far as value, because it's all I have it sorted by the net value. So it was Tampa, Dorless, and Theo Johnson in the 4th round. Katan Oladipo, safety, Oregon State, going to Green Bay. In the 5th round, Mohamed Kamara, pass rusher to the Dolphins in the 5th round. And then Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the linebacker from Clemson, going to Philadelphia in the 5th round. That was the 3 best values in round 5 for me. Round 6 is Malik Washington, Miami Dolphins at 184, wide receiver. Kamal Haddon, corner from Tennessee, going to the Chiefs. Toolsy corner going to the Chiefs.
I had him 52 points of plus value. That's a good one for me too.
That's a good haul. And then the Rams getting Bo Limmer at 217.
Yeah, that's a good one.
From Arkansas was the 3rd best value in the 6th round for me. 7th round best values. Really pissed off the Patriots got Jaheim Bell at 231. Did you watch Jaheim Bell?
Yeah, I've been well acquainted with Jaheim Bell for a while.
Brother.
He's a playmaker, man.
Playmaker with the ball in his hands, runs well. Imagine him in an H-back move type role.
I don't want to imagine that, Kyle.
I think the Patriots got awesome value there. This was best 7th round value for me. And then the 2 other ones were Brennan Rice, USC wide receiver at 255, and Michael Pratt, the quarterback from Tulane, going to Green Bay at 245.
Did you know that Brennan Rice is Jerry Rice's son, Kyle?
No, never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's just like Nick O'Leary is Jack Nicklaus' grandson. You ever hear that?
You know, Kyle.
Every time Nick O'Leary stepped foot on the field.
Yeah.
There's they brought it up.
A lot of those ties. All right, Kyle has some other add-ins, including some first-round guys you want to get to. And, of course, I have some shout-outs as well, so be sure to stick with us. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
I know we already acknowledged Payton Wilson, but it's really obnoxious to sit here and list like the net value and have Pittsburgh at 1 and 3. The best and the 3rd best value picks in the entire class went to Pittsburgh. They had another one in Rowan Wilson that ranked out of 257 picks, ranked 22nd. So they clean up shop in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Obviously,
we talked about him yesterday, right?
Yeah. First place here was Troy Fatanu. And because of the weight of first-round players and the weight of being in the top 10 or the top 5, I had him 3rd on my board. Like, I'm that high on him. The net value discrepancy between getting him at pick 20 versus being ranked as the 3rd best player is the best value pick with this kind of methodology. And you can debate the merit of it if you want. Like, that's fine. But just in the way that I assess the classes, best value pick in the class is Troy Fatanu because of the weight of where he was ranked and where he got picked.
Keep working through your first round stuff that you want to get to, because what I want to talk about is the guys that I had 50 points of plus value. None of them are first round. So
okay. Cool. Byron Murphy at 16. He got love yesterday when we talked about Seattle. So not a surprise that those 2 classes were amongst the ones that I mentioned as the best winners because they had the biggest value. And then there's also round weight because they happened in round 1. They're weighted even more than things that happened in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. My best top 10 value was Joe Alt, first ranked player, going at 5. So that's the shout out within the top 10. And then I'll finish with 2 other players, Quinyon Mitchell and Jared Verse. Were also very high values. They were both amongst the top 10 total best values in the class, despite happening in the first round. Mitchell was ranked 6th, goes 22nd. Verse ranked 8th, goes 19th.
Dig it. I'm resisting the urgency to ask about the opposite of a steal, reaches, because I know you got those as well. But we'll
yeah, I got 3 quarterbacks.
Well, and I think that's important to like remind everybody. This is based on how we see the players, right? So, nobody's right or wrong today, but it's fun to kind of compare what happened to what we saw before the draft.
I know you got some names, but can I openly admit how much it hurts to be looking at the very bottom and see Tavondre Sweat as like a bottom 15 value pick with how much I love Tavondre Sweat? for Tennessee to pick him as early as they did.
You need to stay true to your guns there. You know what I mean? We know the truth.
Well, I had him 64th on my board. I was high on T'Vondre Sweat, and it was still a bad value pick.
Right, but I think you were higher on him, and then you're like, oh, crappy DUI. Like, this is not good.
I didn't change the grade.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
I just put the C,
put the flag
character flag next to it.
Well, maybe Titans fans will forgive you for all your comments that they didn't appreciate.
That's right. Thank you for reminding me. I'm not allowed to talk about this football team.
Yeah.
So this just ruins everybody's day when I talk about the Titans. So I'll shut up now.
50 points of plus value. Dadrion Taylor Demerson. I loved him. 46th player in the class for me. The Cardinals get him at 104. Tez Walker, I had him 59th. Ravens get him at 113. That's 54 points. I was big on Austin Booker, the Kansas edge. Chicago, I think they traded a future pick.
They came out of nowhere. They were done and came back for Booker, which I think is a job well done by them.
We're like, we're going to go ahead and get this guy. We like him a lot. I think it'll be a great opportunity for him. I had him 91st. The Chicago trades back into the draft and gets him at 144. And you already mentioned Kamal Hayden. I had him 159. The Chiefs get him at 211. I'm sure he'll be starting in the Super Bowl and be a good player because that's what happens with the Chiefs and their late round corners.
Yep. Anything else?
No, I think I've got to my shout outs. Pains me to see Javon Baker as one of my biggest plus values, as well as we tongue in cheek praise the New England Patriots.
Patriots getting Jaheim Bell, Javon Baker,
Jalen Polk.
We'll see that apparently they're still calling on vet receivers too. They could potentially turn that wide receiver room on its head fairly quick, which would be great. Which would be
good. Yeah. Help Drake May out. Help him in ways you never helped Mac Jones.
Mac's sitting here just like Justin Fields, like, bro, come on.
Hey, Draw Mayo said they're burning cash, baby. Burning cash. They wanted to. He's like, oh, you know what I meant. We gotta spend responsibly. Nope, that's not what burning cash means at all, Gerard. Right. Not at all.
Right.
No, we didn't know what you meant.
They're still new to all this, right? They had a very systemic way of doing things for a really long time. Not doing it that way anymore. It's a little different.
Right.
The lingo.
Could you imagine being like somebody who covers the Patriots and going from literally you don't get a thing for 20 years from Belichick. All of a sudden, Mayo is just just dropping it left and right. It's like somebody finally asked me a question. I got things to say. It's got to be a lot different.
That is going to do it for us here on Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys for checking out the show. As always, you can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.